Hello everyone, my name is Aysun and I'm here to teach you the hardest coding concepts in the easiest way possible. It is the first lesson of 2025. I hope this year is going to bring you a lot of luck. And this is also one of my very first lessons. I hope you will enjoy it. I hope you will learn one or two things. And again, today's subject is React, and we are going to speak about purity, why purity matters, and what is the best practice. Let me share my screen and let's begin. Okay, I prepared for you another presentation and let's deep dive into. Now, React is a declarative framework, so that allows us to simplify the UI management. But this also brings its own complications because it's quite important to understand how the rendering process is working in order to avoid bugs. And because a framework, it's not easy to manage always, specifically in a complicated application. Now, let's explain purity and how does it contribute, can it contribute to rendering process and makes it more complicated. Now, let's begin from what is a pure function. The definition of the pure function is it will always return the same output, right? Like for the same input. And it's not supposed to produce some side effects like state, DOM, or external data changes. In React, rendering must be pure to maintain predictable behavior. And we will see it why and how in the next slides. Now, let's remind ourselves what are the examples of the side effects, right? Like, for example, mutating a variable, right, during the rendering. We expect the variable value is going to be hello, and then we suddenly decide to update it to the world. Or creating random variables by using the math random library. Or making a network request. This is also going to create unpredictable results. Also, updating the state during the render, like here, for example, calling the set count like that without using anything, that will definitely cause a big time complications. Actually, since we are here, let me explain why the set count, because here it is going to create an infinite loop. And maybe we shall explore why this calling the set count like that is going to create an infinite loop. And now what will happen here is set count is going to update the state, right? Like, because it is useState function, set function. So what it does is going to change the value of the count. And what does it happen each time when the set count's called? Is going to schedule a re-render, the set count, right? That's what, the useState, right? Like this is what useState hook is about. And then this re-render is again going to trigger the set count function, and the set count is going to trigger the useState to create a re-render. And this will keep going like that, and eventually the app is going to crash. And we don't want that. Definitely, we don't want that, this cycle to keep going. And can you see how important it is to know what is doing what and how the things are contributing to the rendering process, which is not that simple at all. So how can we avoid side effects in rendering? Well, mutating a variable, easy, right? Like, don't mutate it. Don't use the math.random and how to deal with, but we have to change the state. Like we have to call the make an API call. We need to speak with an API eventually. We need the data, right? So we shall do it how it is supposed to be done. Instead of calling those API calls or this use state changes directly inside of the render process, we must use state updates for the state updates, a function, right? Like we shall not allow the state update is happening just like that inside of the re-render process, but just after an interaction, the user is interacting with the UI. Just like here, after a button click, I allow the increment function to execute. So this is not going to call the set count increment function, because the increment function is going to be executed only after if somebody interacts with the DOM by clicking on a button. Rather than that, calling the render function is not going to trigger the set count anymore. So we are good. So step number 1, don't make the state updates inside of the outside of a function. Always try to use it with after a DOM interaction. And the other way is the useEffect, right? Like useEffect is a beautiful hook we use in React to control the life cycling, because it's quite important who is going to execute, which function is going to be called after what, when. So useEffect controls that. So instead of again making the state updates just like that inside of the render process, we can use useEffect. That will also allow us to control the side. That's why actually we use useEffect for the side effects. Like remember from the documentation, if somewhere in the internet, if you read about useEffect, they will tell you, well, it's good for the side effects. So there it is. And what else I can use the useEffect for then? I can make API calls inside of it, right? So our key takeaways here is React rendering must be pure to avoid side effects, and we must avoid calling state updates directly in the render body. And we must use the event handlers and the useEffect for state management. And we must also do the debugging, the side effects in an early stage. I hope that helps. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. It will really help. And thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Bye for now.